Okay, I go around the room, and I look at each student. What would I have to give you to commit treason against the United States? No, nothing. I'd never do it. What if I gave you $100,000 and a yacht in the Mediterranean? No, I'd never do it. What if I gave you a mansion in the country and $1 million in the bank? Would you commit treason against the U.S.? No way. No. And we go around the room. They all, no way, no way. I say, okay, you've all just told me that this is something you'd never do. What makes you so bold as to think you can do that to others if you would never do it? And what we're asking you to do as a measure of your success as a case officer is convince others to commit treason against their country.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Today we have a special situation. We have my wife here is going to be assisting me today because the person that we have here is David Rolph. Yeah. And David Rolph was a CIA officer for a very long time, 24 years. And a lot of highlights during that career. And one of them is a guy by the name of Adolph Tolkachev, who is the subject of this book right here, A $1 Billion Spy. This book is by David E. Hoffman, and I want to make sure that he gets credit for that because almost everything that I've learned about this has come from this book and then the conversations that we've had with David. David's been over to the house a number of times for breakfast and lunch, and we've done a couple other things. And on a few of those occasions, we've had the opportunity to talk about some of the things that happened in this book. In a lead up to this podcast, but we've been anticipating this one for quite some time because it's not every day that you get to meet somebody that was just involved in a very historic situation when it comes to assets that the CIA has handled. And we're going to talk a little bit about that, but I'm just going to read a little bit of this back right here. It says, in January of 1977, while the chief of the CIA's Moscow station fills his gas tank, a stranger drops a note into the car. In the years that follow that stranger, Adolph Tolkachev becomes one of the West's most valuable spies. And if you've ever read this book, you'll understand why. And if not, we will talk about why he was such a valuable asset to the CIA and to the United States, and specifically because of the aviation technology when it comes to the West. We've been able to dominate the skies for a very long time, in large part due to the information that Adolph Tolkachev was providing to the CIA and to David and a couple other people that were involved at that time. But David's had a very lengthy career, a lot of accomplishments during that time, a few of which, while he was in the CIA, he was actually the chief of station in East Berlin from 1988 to 1991. And then to follow that, he was the chief of station in Moscow from 1991 to 1993. He graduated high school with his private pilot's license. He got his bachelor's degree in Russian. He was in the Army enlisted from 1968 to, he was in the Army to 1972, but he actually got commissioned during that time frame. He also, while he was active duty, got his commercial rating and his CFI, certified flight instructor. That was in 1970. He got a master's degree in Russian history in 1975. He got his Doctor of Jurisprudence, which is a law degree, in 1976. He passed the Indiana bar also in 1976, worked as an attorney for 8 to 9 months and decided that wasn't his thing. While he was an attorney, or while he was practicing or getting his law degree, he had actually applied to the CIA, and when he decided that he wasn't going to be in the law profession anymore, that's when he transitioned into the CIA. And he retired after 24 years, having served in Turkey, Bosnia, Singapore, Tokyo, East Berlin, Moscow. And one of the other things that David did that's going to be really interesting to talk about at some point is he actually taught at the farm from 1985 to 1988. So a very lengthy, very accomplished and prestigious career. And after having listened to the audiobook completely through once and then going through it a second time, it's pretty incredible to realize the significance of the story of the $1 Billion Spy and David's part in all of that, which is really incredible because David was actually one of the handlers for him for a period of time. There were a couple of handlers, and we'll talk about that. But Holly works with David. That's why I got to know David as well, and she wanted to be a part of this. And I think it's a really good opportunity for us to just have a conversation with you, Dave. So I really appreciate you being here and taking the time. And yeah, it's just awesome to, and I remember when Holly told me that she was like, oh yeah, I work with this guy, and he used to work with the CIA, and that's cool in itself. But then she told me about, there's this book and everything. I had no clue about it. And when I finally got around to the book, I was like, okay, well, this is like a really big deal. Like, this isn't just some
for real
random thing.
He's pretty cool.
So it's it's really awesome that you're here, and I'm glad that you're here, and I really appreciate it. How are you doing?
Very good. I'm glad to be here and have the chance to speak with you all. It is I will just put out ahead of everything that a lot of the stuff I was involved in was not so much attributed to my skill, but to luck. They say be at the right place at the right time, and fortunately, in several cases, that was what happened. In the case of Tolkachev, he was being handled by a very senior officer who was getting ready to leave Moscow. And the chief of station had to find a successor for him, somebody to take his place. And so he looked at all the officers he had in the station, and one who would have been a logical replacement for this John Gilsher, who was the first handler of Tolkachev, was heavily involved in another activity. So he just simply didn't have the cycles to do it. He looked around at another couple officers who would have been qualified to do it, but they were going to be leaving the following summer. So why have the turnover to a person who's going to be leaving in 9 months anyway?
Yeah.
I had 2 years left to go. There was a couple of us in that situation with 2 years left to go. But it seems my Russian was a little better than theirs. And Tolkachev was only a Russian speaker, so we need to have somebody who spoke Russian. And so even though I was only a first tour officer, I had just arrived in Moscow straight out of training because the other logical choices for realistic reasons were no longer in the running. It just sort of fell into my lap. So there you go. This case, which was, as you indicated, Eric, a very significant case in terms of production and just the volume of the material he gave us and the access that he had to really protected information made it valuable. And it normally would not have been given to a first tour officer, but it just that's the way the chips fell. I wasn't going to turn it down, obviously, and you pick up the ball and run with it. But no, so and a lot of other activities I had the good fortune of being involved in were oftentimes, when I look back at it retrospectively, the fallout of luck than it was skill. And I like to think I was skillful once I picked them up. But there's more things happen because of happenstance, and sometimes they're the most exciting things you get involved in. And it's just the way it happens.
I'll take luck any day.
I had a couple people tell me if I could be, what they say. Smart, or I could be lucky. I'd pick lucky every time, so it's there you go.
So to kind of give everybody like an outline of what we're going to do, we're going to talk about like Dave's history, like where he grew up, going through like education, how he became, how he got interested in the CIA. It wasn't necessarily like a path that he had like decided early on. It kind of, a lot of things, like you were saying, it kind of fell into place, and it just happened to be the right place, the right time, some luck, some decisions, very good decisions and things like that. But we're going to talk about Dave's getting to the CIA, his time in the CIA. Couple of things that were very interesting was that you were the chief of East Berlin during the fall of the Soviet Union. Is that right?
When the wall, in East Germany, of course, that wall they had built in the early 60s, in the late 80s, 89, it came down. And so I had the good fortune of being the chief of station in East Berlin when the wall came down.
And then during the collapse of the Soviet Union,
I went on to Soviet Union and just happened to be the chief of station in Moscow when the Soviet Union collapsed.
So we're gonna talk about all of that in the first episode, and then the second episode we're actually going to spend a lot, the majority of the time, if not all of it, on the story of Adolph Tolkachev and Dave's involvement in that. So that'll be a separate episode that we're going to do. But today we want to really just start off with, where did you grow up?
Well, my father was a career military officer, and so I basically grew up wherever he was assigned. So they call them Army brats or whatever, where you just and so I was born in Fort Knox, Kentucky, and my father went off to Korea, and we relocated to New Jersey, to where my mother's parents lived. So while he was gone, he came back. We went to Fort Hood, Texas. Then we went over to Europe for a while. Came back from Europe, back to Fort Knox, where it all started. And about that time, I was entering high school. And so, the high school was in Kentucky, and went on from there to college.
You got your private pilot's license when you graduated, high school, right?
Right. When I graduated, I had a great love for flying. I always have, and still do. But when I graduated from high school, I was talking to my dad about future and all that kind of stuff. And I said, I'd really like to be a pilot. Well, it was a lot cheaper to learn how to be a pilot back in the mid 60s. And so I had a job, put a little bit of money together, and I did indeed get my private pilot. I got my private pilot license before I got my driver's license.
That's pretty cool, actually.
So
that's pretty cool.
That was awesome.
And then went on from the private later to get the commercial license, the flight instructor rating, and other licenses. But
it's pretty cool too, because actually this is one of two things that you and Eric have in common that was really crazy when we first started hanging out. I was like, oh wow, that's crazy. So not only do you both just have a passion for aviation and flying, but on top of it, you both went to law school and hated law. So I mean, there's also that.
I stayed in it though.
We sort of had a kinship already.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Where did your love of flying come from?
Well, I guess I'd have to say it came from a book named Fate is the Hunter.
Really?
Yeah, written by Ernest Gann. And I read that book in high school before I graduated, and it just grabbed me.
What was the book about?
Ernest Gann was it was semi-autobiographical.
Okay.
And Ernest Gann was a commercial pilot who started flying with American Airlines in the late 30s. And he flew with American Airlines. Then he was co-opted into the Military Airlift Command in World War II. And then went back into American Airlines for a while and then flew for another airline. But it was basically the story of an airline career.
Wow.
That started in the mid-30s and went on into the early 60s. And so it was, I just found it, and he was a great writer anyway.
Sure.
But I found all his stories were just
captivating,
fascinating. Some of the experiences he had. And I said, well, man, I wouldn't mind doing that. And so, it never happened. I mean, I did get a commercial license, and I flight instructed while I was going back to graduate school for 4 or 5 years. I worked as a flight instructor, but never turned it into a full career.
So once you graduated, you got your pilot's license. Then you go to college after that.
I got my pilot's license. I went to college, right away, and I got a bachelor's degree. And that was the time, you have to understand, with Vietnam, there was the draft. And so when I finished college, the draft letter came, and I had a choice. I could wait till my date came up to be drafted, in which case I'd have a 2-year obligation. But I had no choice at all as to what they would do with me. I could be a truck driver or a cook or whatever. Nothing to do with your preference if you're drafted. Or I could enlist and give them 1 more year, enlist for 3 years, and get a choice of whatever my skill set would be. And so I said, I'll give them 1 more year. I'll enlist, avoid the draft, and I picked Russian language. So because my degree was in Russian, I was really fascinated by Russian history. And so
and that's a curiosity for me, because your interest in Russian, like, which came first, your interest in human intelligence or your interest in Russian culture and history?
Russian culture and history.
What triggered that?
It was in high school. I went to a summer session. I went to summer school, not because I flunked something, but I saw.
Okay, Dave. Okay,
it's okay.
No, but I saw on the list of courses that were available in the summer session was a course in Russian history.
That's pretty cool.
So I signed up because I think, and that started when I was over in Europe with my father in the late 50s, because his unit was assigned to the border patrol duties along Czechoslovakian border.
Okay.
So he would take me out there and show me the fence, the Iron Curtain. And I always was fascinated with a bunch of countries who would not let their people be free and travel out, and had to guard them with dogs and fences. So there was a fascination back there.
Interesting.
And I took this course in Russian history, and I really got, sort of sucked into it. I really enjoyed it. And that was long before I even knew what human intelligence was like.
Okay.
I had never heard of it.
So did you went into the Army after, like, right around the time you got your degree in 1968, you go into the Army?
I got my degree in, like, May 5th or 6th. And I was at Fort Knox for basic training on May 20th.
Wow.
So like 3 weeks later, I was in the Army.
And where did the human intelligence start? Did it start while you were in the Army?
It did. I first went into the military. I got the Russian language school. And from there, language in the military is not a specialty. It's a kind of an add-on sort of additional skill. So when I got the Russian language school, they had to then send me to a school to get a skill, and I went to become a interrogator.
Okay,
military intelligence interrogator, and it's about that time, shortly thereafter, that I got commissioned as a lieutenant. And so, interrogation was an enlisted MOS skill set. So once I got commissioned, they had to send me to to get an officer skill set.
Right.
And at the time, that with human intelligence was an officer skill set. And I sort of just picked it. I didn't really know what it was. I knew what it was theoretically. It was running around trying to acquire assets, foreign agents to work and help us out. Collecting information. But the idea was, instead of signals intelligence, which had to do with electronic signals and intercepts or
comms,
communications type of thing, this was human intelligence. And so it dealt with getting intelligence from humans. And so it just so happened that particular school was open. It had slots. And I said, well, I'll give it a try. So it was not like any lifelong love of human intelligence. It was that that school was available when they were getting ready to send me to school. And so I took it. And I went immediately after I graduated from that school over to Europe and worked as a human intelligence collector for the Army in Germany. And that's where I got the real taste of what human intelligence was about. So when I got out of the Army and started in graduate school, I finished graduate school, finished law school, but again, law school, the pursuit of law, I was sort of losing interest in it. It wasn't like I thought it would be, and I kept saying to myself, well, I did human intelligence in the military. How can I get back into that in the civilian side?
You liked it?
I liked it, and there was the CIA, and that's what they do for a living. So I put in an application. It's always sort of a shot in the dark because the CIA has varying requirements, and they change from year to year, and you never know whether they're gonna be interested in what you bring to the table. It again, a lot of luck, I'm sure. But the fact that I had human intelligence in the military, the fact that I spoke Russian, the fact that I had a master's degree, graduate degrees, it sort of fit what the agency was looking for at the time, and I got hired.
At what point did the CIA hit your radar? I mean, because you said you went into the military, and the whole reason your main interest was the Russian language, and you thought, well, this is what I'm going to do, and then it by proxy just got attached to human intelligence, right? Like you became an interrogator. At what point did you realize, oh, this is something I'd really like to do, human intelligence?
Well, when I was in law school, and first couple of years of law school, I was pretty enthused about it. But I started to lose interest as the second year ended. And I figured, wow, I got 1 year to go, and I'll be a lawyer, but I don't really want that. So I started shopping around, and I went to one of these job fairs at the university where they have people representing various companies. And I saw on the paper that a CIA representative was going to be coming and interviewing for people. I said, that's what I used to do in the Army.
Yeah.
Well, maybe I'll at least put an application in and see what happens. Okay. So I put the application in. It was more or less, I was starting to explore alternatives to law school and to the law. I also put an application in with the FAA air traffic control system to be an air traffic controller.
Yeah.
And sure enough, I got accepted by both the FAA and the CIA, and then I flipped a coin and went to the CIA.
Did you really flip a coin?
I didn't really flip a coin. Yeah. But I guess
How old were you at this point?
At that point, I was probably 28.
Okay.
Yeah, 28. And so, which is, for the agency, that's about the average age.
Okay.
The agency isn't looking for people fresh out of undergraduate school.
Okay.
They want people to go out and get experience in other areas of life. And then they pick you up a little later.
Get a little depth.
I would say the average age for people entering the agency is average, means there's some below and there's some older, but would be about 27, 28.
Okay.
How long was it called human intelligence in the Army?
Oh,
and how long was that school?
That school was about 6 months long.
Okay.
The human intelligence school at the time in the Army. The Army still teaches human intelligence to this day, but the schooling and the curriculum that they use has morphed and changed, and it's grown with the times.
I think I remember you saying they were teaching like interrogation and stuff like that.
In the military, that's one area of human intelligence.
Oh, okay.
Debriefing is another area of human intelligence. What we do is called, clandestine collection.
Okay.
So the difference is an interrogator has some degree of control over that subject.
Got it.
He might be a prisoner of war or something like that. He's interrogating him. A debriefer, that's a person you interact with, but he's a cooperative. He knows that you're looking for information.
Yeah.
And he's cooperating with you. He wants to help you. Usually it's another American citizen.
Yeah.
A professor in an American university travels overseas, and he's going to a conference where interesting things will be discussed. He comes back and agrees to be debriefed. That's debriefing. Human intelligence, clandestine human intelligence, is different from those two. It's where you're going out and you're spotting leads that might have access, foreign citizens who might have access that's of interest. So you meet them, you develop them, you assess them, and eventually, if they do prove to be of interest, you try to acquire them or recruit them.
So let's go back to law school real quick, because how did you become interested in that throughout all of, like you got a bunch of different things going on. Like what was the spark for law school?
You may not want to hear this, but the reality is I went back to graduate school with the idea that I was going to get a PhD in Russian studies.
Okay.
As I got back into the graduate school and started that program, the PhD program, at Indiana University, it was one they were very serious about. And to go on to get the PhD would be about another 4 or 5 years beyond the master's degree. And it would have required me to do work with original sources in the archives in Russia. And I mean, I looked ahead. It was right after the Vietnam War was over or ending. And, graduate school deferments were going away. They didn't need them anymore. So the graduate school, the numbers of people were in graduate school was diminishing. Grants and scholarships and all that were diminishing. It was great during the war because people wanted deferments. They wanted to get out of going to the war. But now everything was drying up.
Wow.
And when all that dried up, so did positions as professors.
Okay.
And so I looked at having to go 4 or 5 more years, flying back and forth to Russia for the archives, putting all that money into it, and then having very little in the way of a job market. It just was drying up. I had friends that were getting their PhDs and graduating, and they were driving taxi cabs.
Oh, wow.
They were working in bookstores. Wow. And so I by that time I had 2 children, and I said, ooh, this isn't going to work. And so what I wanted to do was, what can I do to get a degree that is going to be marketable, and I can finish it in a fixed amount of time. Law school was 3 years, and if I got that degree, it was marketable.
Yeah, for sure.
So I didn't go off to law school with the idea of being, I wasn't dreaming about becoming, Thomas Jefferson or anything like that. I was dreaming about a marketable degree I could get in 3 years.
And make a living.
Make a living. So basically 2 years into it, I realized this was a big mistake. This is not what I want to do. And so I decided to start looking at other places. So no, I mean, can't confuse my sojourn in law school as being inspired by any great, budding mind of a jurist. That was not it.
So you got a master's degree almost during the same time frame.
I did
it's pretty spectacular, actually. I mean, you were doing a lot.
You go to a lot of classes and write a lot of papers. Yeah.
Well, when you're in school, you might as well take advantage of it. You know what I mean? One of the hardest things is to be in school, take a break, and then try to get back on the wagon again, like full on, especially when you're getting to master's level work versus, because undergraduate can be difficult if you've never done anything beyond that. Yeah. But then you get to master's level or law school and the volume and everything just shifts to like a whole different level that you
tremendous amount.
So it's very, very different. And if you haven't learned how to study by that point, you're really going to struggle potentially.
And to top it all off, when I was getting my master's degree and my law degree, I still had to pay for my 2 kids and my wife and all that. And so I was a flight instructor and charter pilot.
Wow.
So while I'd go to school in the day, I'd fly at night.
That sounds like a really busy life at that point.
It was a busy life. For those years, I not a lot of grass grew under my feet.
Yeah. But that's really cool, though. I mean, that's a lot of different things. I mean, especially with the flying and master's degree in Russian history.
Master's in Russian history, yeah.
And then getting your law degree. That's pretty amazing. And then you took the bar after that, right? You took a bar prep course. Do you remember if was it Barbary back then?
No, it was just the bar prep course for the Indiana State Bar.
Was it 2 days or 1 day? Probably 2.
The prep course?
The bar exam.
Well, the bar exam was 2 days.
Yeah. Did you pass first time?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I passed first time.
And then you work as an attorney for
About 8 months. Yeah, I got a job as an attorney because the CIA hadn't answered me yet. They hadn't told me whether my application was successful.
Yeah, because you had applied while you were in law school, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And so it was still hanging out there. And so I had to take the job someplace to start putting food on the table.
Sure.
I took the job in the law firm. And then literally a month later, I got the letter from the agency saying I was accepted. Well, I couldn't go back to the law firm having hired me a month before and say, I'm leaving you in the lurch. So I asked the agency to extend my acceptance from a November class to the next May. And they agreed to. So I could go to the law firm and say, I can stay with you until next May. And that gave them time for a more normal transition from, one position to another.
When you had applied to the CIA, were you, I don't know if dead set at that point would be the right word, but were you like, oh man, I really want to make sure, I'm really hoping that I get this, you know what I mean? Or was it kind of like,
yeah, I was really hoping because I had already decided the law was not going to be where I was going to go.
Got it.
So I'd have to go someplace.
And was flying off the table at that point? Like,
flying was off the table because, again, with the end of the Vietnam War, to get a job with the airlines, which I, otherwise might have tried to do, I had a lot of what we call single and small multi-engine time.
Yeah.
Flying charters. And I was up against all these individuals coming out of the Air Force with, B-52 time,
like
turbine time jets. And so I, all of a sudden, when Vietnam wound down, I was no longer competitive for an airline job.
Okay.
And so had to find something else. And that was, and I have to admit, by the time I got the application into the CIA, and I saw it going through its motions and moving along, and I had taken all the tests. I hadn't been turned down. They were just, dotting their I's and crossing their T's. The more it went on, the more I got excited about doing it because I figured this might actually be interesting. Yeah.
Wow.
And so I read a couple books on the agency, and
Was this before or after you applied?
Sort of both.
Okay, so a little bit before, then you apply, then you get a little bit more information after.
Yeah, and then so it just sort of accumulated, and by the time I got the acceptance letter, I was ready to report for duty.
So what was you read this newspaper, you found out that at this job fair that a representative from the CIA was going to be there. What was your thought of what the CIA was at that point, or what was your impression? Were you like, oh, I wonder what that is, or you kind of had an idea? Or?
I vaguely knew because I had read some books about the CIA.
Okay.
And it talked about, the different directorates, operations directorate, the intelligence directorate, where they do analysis, administration, and then science and technology. And clearly my interests were in the operations directorate. I didn't want to be, I had no scientific background. I certainly didn't want to get involved in administration and, HR. And so that left the analytical department, and it left the operations directorate. And I think I got some brain power, but it's not the type they're looking for to be a real analyst. I'm not, and I'm not interested in sitting around in a cubicle, analyzing political movements and writing reports. I wanted to get out in the field and actually do something. So the operations director was where I wanted to be. And when I did the interview with the guy, he said, well, where do you want to end up? Which directorate? And I said, no question, the operations directorate. And so
it kind of makes sense too, because it really was an extension of your interest in Russia and Russian history and all that. So the idea maybe of just getting out there. So
well, you have to be careful too. You can't make it too specific. You can't choose where you want to go. If they bring you into the operations directorate, it's up to them to assign you to a division, a geographic area.
You can't display too much preference because it may make you biased?
I believe me, I did display preference.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Somewhere towards the end of your training, the various chiefs of all these centers or divisions, they called them divisions then, now they're centers, would come down and talk to the students at the farm. And at the end of it, you would fill out a preference sheet. Where do you want it? What division? And you put in 3 different preferences:
like
Africa,
Russia,
East
Russia.
Yes. Well, that's what I did. They expect you to put 3 choices down, and I put SE division, was called Soviet East Europe Division. My first choice was SE. My second choice was SE. My third choice was SE.
That's fine.
And they scratched their heads and looked at it and said, all right,
I guess he's going SE.
Going SE. So I did get what I wanted, but that doesn't always happen. It's always based on the needs of the service, So,
Do you think that your involvement in human intelligence in the Army was the but-for cause of you becoming a CA?
It helped. Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of things helped. Just my Army service helped. The human intelligence involvement in the Army, I think probably because I had got Russian language.
Yeah.
And, I had been basically traveling all my life, whether my father was a military independent, which is not really critical travel, but I had done other things overseas. And I think it just made sense at the time. I don't think they were questioning that I shouldn't be in the operations directorate.
Did you ever get a hint early on of what they were looking for at that point? You know what I mean? Like, had you done enough research where you were like, oh, they're looking for this. They want, master's degree at a minimum. At
that time, the majority of agency operations slots, not all of them, of course, the majority, what we call on embassy platforms. We were assigned to embassies, to a station within an embassy. So it was like that we were all nominally State Department cover, state people. It looked like we were State Department, but we worked in the agency office in the embassy. And since the majority of our positions overseas had something to do with an embassy, the agency was still heavily looking for people who had strong backgrounds in political science and in social sciences, so they could more easily blend in with the embassy. What they talk about, the cocktail circuit. You're going around to cocktail parties, embassy receptions, and that's where you're doing a lot of your spotting and your assessing and you're trolling for potential people who might be of value to the U.S. government. So they were definitely looking for people with social science, political science degrees. They were looking for, at the time, they preferred a minimum of a master's degree. Although there were exceptions. I've seen some people come in with a bachelor's. Majority were master's degrees. And they were looking for people with language skills already, so they didn't have to take time to train you in a language.
Yeah.
And any other specialized skills you might bring to the table. Later on, back when I joined the agency, there were no cell phones, there were no computers, there was no Google, there was no laptops.
Yeah.
It was all, basically, when I first started, it was manual typewriters.
Yeah.
We finally got the IBM Selectrics, with the little ball in the middle of it that spun around.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, so there was no high technology, and there was no interest really in cybersecurity and cyber technology.
Yeah.
That came later. And when that came into its own, then they were looking more and more for cyber qualified people. When we started doing, a lot of serious tracing of, follow the money with terrorist organizations and cartels, then they started looking for people with more accounting backgrounds and maybe banking experience. So the agency's needs change as the time changes from year to year, from month to month. And so back when I applied, basically what my portfolio said was it's kind of what they were looking for. Had I applied with that same portfolio 20 years later, I might not have been successful. It's you can't say I was a great candidate for the agency in the late or mid 70s, and I would have been a great candidate in the 90s. That's not the case because their needs change. And they're looking for people who are different than that. So, it varies.
How have those needs changed over the years since, like what have you witnessed when it comes to the needs changing over time?
Well, the biggest thing is that when I first came in, and for the majority of my career, we were involved in what we called the Cold War. And the Cold War was just, one great power against another great power. And it was, face-offs, and it was in a way, it was a fight for involvement around the world, not world domination, but being able to influence other countries. Yeah. The Soviets were putting people in Africa and trying to, gain allies on the African continent, and some were doing it in the East Asia area. China was just coming into its own. This is before China really became a superpower.
Sure.
So the Cold War, was basically the U.S. and Moscow facing off, and there were lots of other players, but not on the major stage. Then all of a sudden the 90s came, and we started to see things like the embassy bombings in Africa. We had, in 1988, December 88, we had Pan Am 103 get shot down blown up.
I remember,
over Lockerbie, Scotland. One of my classmates was on that plane,
Oh my goodness.
coming back for Christmas from Beirut, Lebanon. And we had, it was the rise of terrorism. You already heard the name, occasionally whispered, Osama bin Laden. He's this Saudi Arabian guy who's running around in Afghanistan. He's doing this, he's doing that. And so we moved slowly from the Cold War into what we call GWOT, GWOT, the Global War on Terror.
Okay.
And the Global War on Terror demanded a different type of approach to operations. Whereas in the Cold War, we spent a lot of time developing interpersonal relationships with people so we could convince them through interaction with them, interpersonal to perhaps agree to work with us. And it was a process. It was a developmental process in the Global War on Terror. When you're running around the desert with IEDs blowing up, and it was a tactical where the militaries were facing off. You didn't have an environment in Baghdad or Fallujah or Ramadi to be taking people to lunch and developing them and buying them cocktails. And it was not. It was a different.
Well, it's a different culture too.
It's a different culture, but it's also the fact that your information needs were more immediate.
Sure.
Where is that IED buried? You tell me where an IED is buried, I'll give you $500 or whatever it was. So your stables of assets were in the Cold War. They were, the result of developmental operations, and you worked with them for years. In the War on Terror, they became more transactional. They were more like paid informants. You got information for me? Here's some money. If it works out, I'll give you more money. If it works out, I'll give you more money. And there were no deep relationships. Now, that's not to in any way disparage people who worked in the Global War on Terror. That was what was necessary at the time.
Right.
And they made it work. They made it successful. But it was a different type of clandestine human operations. Now, the Global War on Terror has been officially ended, and we're now into what we call global powers, conflict, where it's the rise of China and Iran, North Korea. Russia is asserting itself again. So we're transitioning from the transactional relationships in the Global War on Terror It's like Back to the Future.
Interesting.
We're now in our school here. We're doing a lot of that we're focusing on teaching is going back to the day when we
relational.
really worked with building deep interpersonal relationships as opposed to just getting paid informants. So and I imagine 10 years from now it might change to something else.
Sure.
It'll adjust to whatever is needed to collect the kind of information the United States needs for national security reasons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting to think about what you're just saying, because it's like I could see like potentially, and that, I guess that would be what I'd wonder. Since you've been through all this, it's like the internet kind of changed everything, like the immediacy of information.
Well, it's not only that. We look at that global war on terror, and I said we kind of lost the human touch because it was all transactional. Well, there was other things that contributed to that. The rise of social media. Yeah. People no longer talk with their lips. They talk with their thumbs.
And that's kind of like what I'm getting to is like, a firestorm could get set off in minutes across the world. So it's like that information allows things to change very rapidly. So it has to almost be transactional, even though you're still establishing some type of relationship with this person, even if it's monetary. You know what I mean? They look at you as like, oh, I need money. I give you information. You know what I mean? Versus like back in the day where there was no internet, and information got exchanged very differently back then.
The internet, can be adapted, and it has been adapted in many ways to be able to support our operations. Yeah. But, the big problem that comes with technology is the fact that you need to then develop some very sophisticated ways to make sure it's still secure. Sometimes you can encrypt messages. Yeah. But sometimes if you encrypt messages, it's the type of encryption, it's how that encrypted message is transmitted. You can't just necessarily send a text message to your asset, because the thing is, wherever we're working, there's always going to be a local counterintelligence service trying to protect their country's information. Yeah. And so they are going to come up with means to defeat your technology or try to defeat it. And then you've got to come up with means to defeat their countermeasures. And it's so technology, yes, the internet is in many respects is a boon to this business, but it's also a curse, because it comes with all sorts of operational security considerations that you might never had to think of before. And every different era has its own challenges and its own techniques. A lot of stuff remains the same, but a lot of things change. It's there's no easy answers. But you look at challenges for what they are. They're challenges. Some service puts up a challenge against your efforts to stop you. And you just have to figure out how to meet that challenge and work around it. There's, that's part of what the game is all about.
So, like, backing back out a little bit and looking at the CIA as a career path and what you ended up taking, we know why you did. It was kind of just something one thing led to another, and this is what you became interested in and then became excited about, and it was a real opportunity, and then you got into it. But for others, when you were in there and rubbing shoulders with other officers in the CIA, did you find that was common, that people would get into the CIA because of happenstance, or something that kind of just they were led into, or was it a lifelong dream for a lot of people?
I don't think for many people it's a lifelong dream. I think a lot of people, and just by the same token, I don't think it's happenstance either.
Sure.
I mean, I think some people get very enamored with, they read stories of James Bond and a lot of, they watch movies that the Bourne Identity, where they they see something which is not really very realistic.
It's glamorized, right?
And they glamorize it, and they put in applications, and because they're pursuing this glamorous idea of what they think it is. But it's generally there's a reckoning. They come to terms with the fact that it would be like, I'd love to say that being in the agency operations directorate is just one exciting day after another of driving fast cars and jumping out of airplanes. But if I'm looking at something, what is the bulk of our work, even in the operations directorate? It's writing reports.
Yeah.
Yes.
I go out and I meet somebody, and he has very interesting information. Unless I can write it up coherently and honestly and get it to the right people, the people that need it back in Washington or in the Pentagon or wherever, what good is collecting it?
Yeah, and you really did kind of get right and touch the nerve of like the question, why the question's asked, because like the whole point of this podcast even is to shed a realistic light on various career paths, and so people can understand what the daily life is like and really make informed decisions about what they're doing. Yeah. And so it's true, like that's it, and it's interesting because you both sitting here at the table had a very real experience of thinking a degree in law was going to be one thing and then finding a different thing. So, and speaking about the CIA, then that's the question.
Well, I mean, I don't mean in any way to say because we have to write reports that it's boring.
Sure.
Because I can look back at my career in the CIA and is anything but boring. And people also, once they get into the agency, they, may have to give up their ideas of shootouts in some, foreign city. But there are a lot of other career rewards that you become to learn are equally important and have to be done. And a lot of times there's a lot of planning involved in operations. There's a lot of preparation involved. It's and also a tremendous amount it doesn't come from. I can't tell you that the answer to this question is on page 78 of your textbook.
Right.
There are no real answers because so much is based on you bringing imagination to the table. I often tell the story when I was chief of station in Moscow, I would have a cable that would come in from Washington levying a requirement saying, Moscow, we'd like you to do the following. And I'd look at it, and based on my wisdom as a chief of station and many years in the organization, I'd decide, I know how we're going to solve this. And then I'd call in my officers, mostly young first tour officers, and I'd have them sit around a conference table. And I'd say, I'd pass each one of them out the copy of the cable, and I'd say, take a look at this. This is a requirement that headquarters has levied on us. We've got to come up with a solution. So read it. They read it, and I said, now, okay, go around the table. What do you think? What do you think? What do you think? What do you think? And these are all officers that may have been in the agency for 4 years, 3 years, just finished training. Brand new officers.
Yeah, but the creativity's there, right?
The creativity, the imagination, the intelligence. These guys, we do a very good job of selecting people that are really, really capable and qualified. And I would find invariably when we got around that table that the solution I had picked, before they even came in, the solution we finally reached was 180 degrees off of my solution.
Wow.
Because I was taking advantage of all this bright, smart, people who were, putting their imagination to work. And nothing we came up with.
It's not necessarily textbook.
It's not. Nothing we ever came up with could be found in the textbook. These were imaginative solutions to really very, intricate challenges. And that's part of the excitement of it. Because you're always working on depending on each other to come up with new ideas, new ways of solving problems, and then of course oftentimes your solutions out on the street don't involve firefights or screeching car tires or brakes or smoke screens or anything. What they involve is more I would say, more stealth and care and precision,
Cunning.
It's you're pitting your ability, your imagination, your brain power, and all that against another side, and a very real opposition.
And you have to think on your feet.
And you have to think on your feet. You have to, and you can't be, everything can't be black and white, or it's all areas of gray. There's a lot of ambiguity, and so it's like a chess game. It's is there excitement in a chess game? You see a couple people playing chess. It doesn't look exciting, but when you know what's going on in their mind, moving, they're one of them is 10 or 12 moves ahead.
Yes,
and
you're thinking of all the possibilities.
And that's kind of what it's more like that than it is just walking around on the street.
Then is there like a type that's better suited? And I guess this is going to be different. What did you call the different sectors in the CIA? There's like different directorates, right? So, but for the operations, like there's going to be, is there like a creative type that's,
it's every type.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people say, oh, you got to be an extrovert. Get out
I
there,
know, that's
slap
a common
them on
one,
the back.
right?
Yeah. Because you look at these tests, these psychological tests, and they'll say, would you rather attend a diplomatic reception? Would you rather listen to Beethoven or a rock concert? And you say, and people are trying to second guess and say, oh, they want people who are adventurous. So I'd rather go on a hike in the Rocky Mountains than go to a
it's a mistake, right?
Orchestra.
I mean, it's a mistake because
it's not a mistake. It'd be people. You never know what they're looking for. It's a combination of all the things. There's 200 questions on the test. I'm being facetious. Could be more or less, but they're looking for different correlations and things. And
sure,
I've known case officers very successful who have been extroverts, type A personalities, and I've known others that have been introverts and rather quiet, retiring people.
Yeah,
it really depends on not so much who you are, but how you use your skills.
Yeah.
Right.
How you use the things you have.
Your resourcefulness.
Resourcefulness to get. We say when we're going after a lead, we think he's going to make potentially a good source, and he's got issues. He's got family issues. Work issues. He's got all sorts of concerns. We might call them, some of these issues, motivations. He's trying to pay his mortgage. He's trying to put his child through school, tuition. His wife just, came, home after a long stay for, assisted care for cancer or something. Everybody has issues. And what we tell our trainees is, what you've got to do is your relationship. You have to put yourself in his shoes. You have to understand and empathize with what his issues are to really understand him. And since every target, every person we go after has varied personalities, we got to be everything to everybody. Depends on who you're dealing with. And so, it's... there's no way to say this is what a case officer is like.
Right.
You adapt to your target. So So
adaptability. So there's more of like a desire for this whole mosaic of personalities to share similar characteristics in, say, psychological openness, like the trait openness and creativity and things like that. But it's like you said, it could be anywhere on the spectrum of personality types. It's just how you use your strengths, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And there's a little bit of training involved. You have to be able to adjust, and you can't just say, well, hey, I'm kind of an introvert, so I'll just be an introvert. No, what you really got to be is a chameleon. You've got to be able to read that target, and you've got to change to be the kind of person that target is looking for. And at the end of the day, that target has to be very comfortably able to put his safety and security in your hands.
Sure. Yeah.
You know, there was a very famous British spy for the Russians named Kim Philby. Okay. He was recruited as part of, they called it the Cambridge Five. These were students at Cambridge University in the mid-30s. And the Soviets recruited these 5 people more or less as sleepers. We'll recruit them, and then they're coming from Cambridge University. Let's see what happens to them in the system as they rise up and all that. Well, Kim Philby was a very good target because he ultimately became a very senior guy in MI6, the British Overseas Collection Service. But back to his recruitment, Kim Philby once made a comment about the Soviet case officer that recruited him was named Arnold Deutsch. And Kim Philby said one time about Arnold Deutsch, he said, Deutsch was a marvelous man. When he was talking to you, he made you feel like there was nothing in the world more important to him than talking to you. And that's what makes a case officer. You have to be able to interact with somebody, whoever that person is, and make that person feel like nothing is more important to you in the world than his chance to talk with you at that moment. And so a Kim Philby could put his trust in that guy.
Sure.
He could he could feel confident that Arnold Deutsch would look out after his security and his safety.
Yeah.
And he can identify with him. And that's what we're trying to train people to be that kind of person, to be able to adjust, to be that kind of person to whoever their target is.
Yeah. So that all of that information that you were just saying is like super important, I think, because, you know, again, back to like the point of this podcast and having people who are listening, maybe who are interested in the CIA and can kind of maybe understand some of the things that make an officer good, at least in the sense of like the operatives, right, and the operations. But, you know, like, so going back to when you first applied, right, we kind of dropped off in the middle of your story, like you first applied, you didn't really know any of this, or did you kind of have some idea because of your experience in the Army?
I had absolutely. I had, an idea of what it was about because of my experience in the Army. I mean, the Army is actually doing the same stuff, but the Army is usually targeting individuals who are at a more tactical level because the Army is collecting human information that's going to be directed or to the benefit of a military tactical commander. There are always exceptions. The Army might be going after a person who's more high-level strategic information if they happen across a lead that would provide that kind of information. But deployed in the field, in a military environment, the military collectors are in a large part answering to, military chiefs, military commanders who need information to conduct their tactical activities.
Right, to make decisions.
Decisions in the field. And so, whereas in the agency, we'd be going after people who would respond more to requirements from strategic level policymakers. In the United States, the military is looking for more tactical type of information at the direction of their commanders in the field. And as I said, that's not always the case. There are exceptions.
Sure.
But so as a result, it's a slightly different type of mindset. Collectors that are comfortable with working on a policy level. Oftentimes, the military will actually work through interpreters because they're out in a battlefield situation where the guy's a Somalian, or he may be a Syrian, or various God knows whatever the tactical situation demands, and nobody can be expected to have near native fluency in all these dialects that are spoken, all tribal. So you have to learn to work through interpreters sometimes. Whereas in the agency, you're targeted against at more to the policy level. You're dealing with larger world languages. It could be Arabic, it could be Chinese, it could be, but it's oftentimes a European language or a Slavic language. And our officers, more often than not, bring those languages to the table. So we don't need to work through interpreters.
Yeah. Okay. So when was it, and you said that the needs have shifted over time. When was it that you applied again for the CIA?
I first put in an application in 1975. Okay. 1975. And the applications normally they vary in time, but anybody, even today, when we say, the guy says, I'm applying to the CIA, generally from the time you apply to the time you would get a positive, here's your offer, would be about a year. I mean, that's just normal. Okay. I've heard people getting an offer, they have a very, very specific skill in some area, and they sort of expedite that because they want to get him out in the field. It might be quicker, but a year is what you can expect.
Is that about how long it took for you?
Yeah. I mean, I applied in 75 in the fall, and I got the acceptance letter in October of 76.
What did the envelope look like?
It was just it was a plain envelope that had a return address. I was being hired. That you're hired undercover. You're not hired by the CIA. My letter said it was from the Army Geographical Research and Analysis Unit. Okay, and it was an office number in the Pentagon. I later went over and checked that office in the Pentagon. It was a broom closet, but it was
no way. That's funny.
But no, it was the Army Geographical Research and Analysis Unit. And I'm sure those things change.
Do you remember what the letter said?
Oh, it just said, we're happy to offer you this position at a certain level, GS whatever, and your report date will be in November 22nd, and report to the following address, and that was it. I mean, it was not a big long letter. It was very, very perfunctory, and signed by Joe Dokes or something, whoever he was, who was not a real person, I'm sure. But anyway, so they hire you undercover, and you never advertise that you're going into the CIA or anything like that.
Of course.
So,
what happens? You get the letter. There's a time frame between you getting it and you reporting to this place.
Usually, there was a 3 to 4 week interval, but it was during that time frame when I first got the letter that I had to immediately call them and say, hey, I can't make it for that class in November. Can you hang on to my acceptance without jeopardizing my acceptance?
Yeah.
Can I come for the next class? And they looked it up and said, the next class is May of 77. And they said, well, can you come in May 77? I said, yes, I'll be there. They said, okay, you got the job. So they just deferred it for about 6 months, 7 months.
How long is the training?
It will vary, and it has varied over the years and back and forth. But in my case, the full training from start to finishing the schooling, the training, was a year.
Okay.
So you'll start in the Washington area, and you'll go to briefings and classroom instruction on the intelligence community and all that kind of stuff, general type of presentations. And then you would go through, and although they may do it a little differently now, in fact, have heard they do, my interim assignments, when you say interim assignments, they will assign you to, you're going into the Directorate of Operations, they will assign you to go to another directorate to get familiarized with what the other directorates do. And so for like 3 months, I went to the Directorate of Intelligence, the analytical area. Not because I was going to go into analysis, but it was just familiarization. So I wouldn't go out into the big agency not having any idea what the analyst work was like.
What your counterparts were doing.
Right.
Yeah.
And so sometimes it's 3 months. Sometimes I've heard some of the interim assignments are 6 months, depending on when the next start of the the farm class starts up. So they may have to hold you in your interim assignment a little bit longer. But in my case, I actually had 2 interim assignments, 2 3-month interim assignments, one in the Directorate of Intelligence and the other back in the Directorate of Operations. It wasn't familiarizing me with a place I wasn't going. It was familiarizing me with a place I was intending to go. So I had those 2 interim assignments. And
Is it kind of like shadow work? You're just shadowing somebody? Or?
No, like, for example, in the Intelligence Directorate, I reported, they sent me to the Eastern European area for the analysis. And I was assigned to the Polish desk. And the director of the Polish desk actually gave me a research topic. And to show you how I cared about analysis, Poland's a very Catholic country. Even back then, even though it was a communist country, it still deferred a lot to the cardinal, who was the Polish prelate. He was the head of the Polish Catholic Church. And the guy who was the Polish prelate at that time was a guy named Cardinal Wyszynski. Cardinal Wyszynski was very old and sickly. And so the director of the Polish desk said, Dave, I'd like you to do a paper. Let's say we'll title it, If Wyszynski Dies.
Wow.
In other words, what would be the impact on Poland and the people? And he said, what do you have? What thoughts do you have on that? And I said, well, I guess there'll be a funeral. And he said, that's not quite what I was thinking about. So that sort of set the stage for my tour of the Intelligence Directorate.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah, he wasn't laughing. But
No,
I didn't care. I'm not an Intel wonk.
Yeah.
So anyway, I don't mean that. I love my Intel friends and colleagues. But no. Anyway, so I got through that. And for my next interim, they said, well, do you have another directorate you'd like to choose? And I thought about it. And since I had no interest in any directorate except the operations directorate, I said, well, why don't you make me send me to the Directorate of Administration, DA. And there was the agency had various buildings around Washington, leased buildings. And these buildings were all, during the day, they were connected with these shuttle buses. They were called Bluebirds. They were all blue. You see them driving from one building to the other, and you can get on one and ride to the other building. And so I said, well, let me go to Office of Logistics, and I'll drive the Bluebird. And they said, no, you don't get it. They didn't want me to drive. I didn't come out to be a bus driver. That wasn't what they... The interim assignment was supposed to familiarize me with the business of the agency, not a bus driving. But it was just another emphasizing to them how little I wanted to do with anything except the operations and so after about 6 months of briefings and interim assignments, then they schedule you to get down to the farm. And I went to the farm. It was a 6-month course, probably 5.5, 6 months. I forget exactly how long it went. But and then when that was over, they had a big board, what do they call it? The NFL draft.
Okay.
You're coming out of the farm.
Interesting.
And you've put in your 3 choices. And
Which for you were all Eastern.
All SE.
Yeah.
And they sit around at a big table, the big chiefs.
Wow.
And it's like a auction.
Like they're trading cards.
Trading cards, and I'll give you 2 of these for one of these, and
Wow.
and you find yourself in a division. And sure enough, after the draft was over, we're all waiting with bated breath. Maybe it comes
What's
out.
the kind of stuff they're looking at? Like, what are they?
First of all, your preferences,
And then your
and
scores
how many openings they have in their division. If they had, 15 people
Wow.
applying
Yeah.
for Africa division, well, Africa might only be able to take 7. You
Sure.
know, so then they go for those people other than not going to Africa. They look at their second choice. Oh, his second choice is Middle East. So he may go, we call it Near East, NE division. So, and God knows, I never sat on one of those not murder board, the NFL draft. The murder board was when you finished the farm, it's just whether or not you were going to pass the farm.
Yeah.
But once you passed, you got through the murder board, and you're going to pass, then you go to the draft for the divisions.
Was this held like in private, like amongst like chiefs?
Very much so.
Okay, but so you don't know until they're done?
You don't know until they're done.
Okay.
There's an announcement made, and it's like you run up to the board, you see where your name is and where you're going.
Did I get the part? Did I get the part?
Something like that. And and so I found out I was going to SC Division. Surprise, surprise. And so I went up to, it's funny because I went up to the division chief to introduce myself, say hello, to thank him for his consideration, taking me into his division. And he was a gregarious guy, a guy named George Caleris at the time. And I said, Mr. Caleris, I'm so happy to be in SC Division. He said, oh, that's great. He says, well, where do you want to go? Where would you like to go as an assignment? And I said, no question, Moscow. So he picks up the phone and he calls down to Russia House, which controls our operations in Moscow. And the guy, the head of Russia House at the time, I became very good friends with later in career. He was much senior to me, but I mean, that's where I started in Russia House. He calls down, he picks up the phone. His guy's name was Jack. And he says, Jack, this is George. I got this guy here standing in front of me, new CT, just graduated. Send him to Moscow, quick.
Wow.
And so I
That's awesome.
I go down to Russia House to introduce myself to Jack. And he says, geez, Dave, I don't know if friggin' George calls me on the phone and says, send you to Moscow. I said, I got no slots in Moscow. I got no openings. So I don't know what I'm going to do. And I said, well, George seemed to be real gregarious today. And he said, yeah. He said, well, I do have one slot in Moscow. But the guy that he just vacated that slot was it was during an operational act. He was arrested.
Oh wow!
And they kicked him out. The Russians kicked him out, PNG'd him. So that slot is red hot.
Yeah, it's hot.
The Russians know that's. I mean, they just arrested a guy for doing an operational act and sent him home. So you don't want to go into that slot. And I said, I'll take it.
Ooh.
And so. He said, okay, we'll slot you for it.
Well, tell everybody what PNG stands for. I know what it is from the book.
PNG is, excuse me, PNG is persona non grata. It's kind of Latin for being you're no longer welcome. You're a person who is not welcome in the country. So any country where you're a diplomat or a person with diplomatic immunity, if they don't want you there, you've done something wrong, they can't arrest you and send you to jail because under the agreements, Geneva Conventions, a person with diplomatic immunity can't be arrested.
Yeah.
But what they can do is declare you persona non grata, PNG, and then you're sent home. You have to leave the country.
And that's just such a huge disruption in your career, no doubt, because
Yeah, it can be. It can be sometimes bigger, sometimes smaller, depending on why you're getting PNG'd. If you're getting PNG'd because you got arrested with an asset, and it turns out that asset was actually working for the bad guys all the time, and you didn't know it, you might survive a little better. If you get arrested because you screwed up,
sure,
that can be a little black mark on your career.
Understandable.
So it depends on a lot of things.
So what he was trying to say then is, if you take the slot, you're like one step away from being burned anyway, because you just like, there's all eyes are on that.
Well, as my career continued, and as I now very adamantly try to teach people, your cover doesn't mean much, because the moment you step off that plane, no matter where you're coming from, you can be coming right from training, never any exposure. Moment you step on that plane, your cover begins to deteriorate. And if you do nothing except your job, a good counterintelligence service will have you pretty well solidly identified as an intelligence officer within about 2 months.
Wow.
So I knew they'd identify me as an intelligence, if I was doing my job. I knew they'd identify me as an intelligence officer within a couple of months anyway. So why not go into the slot that's burned? Because,
Sure.
who am I trying to fool?
It gives you a 2-month head start, maybe?
Maybe a 2-month head start.
Yeah, okay,
But,
got it.
So it wasn't a very big deal.
Okay.
For me, it wasn't. And as it turned out, that philosophy that I've always held since then has proven itself time and again. That, the fact that you're doing your job, you're moving around the city, you're talking in your apartment and they listening in your apartment. You're going to cocktail parties and they have people listening to you, what you're saying, who you're talking to. A good intelligence service, local intelligence service, will watch you, and their analysts will go through various, what do they call those things? If you say yes, you go this way, you say decision charts, and they'll come to the conclusion very quickly that you're a highly suspect, if not confirmed, intelligence officer. So it just proves that we do our work overseas successfully, not as a result of cover. We do it as we successfully overseas as a result of our tradecraft and our practices, our knowledge of the CI service and what they can do, and most importantly, our area knowledge of the environment we're working in.
Okay.
And so there's a lot of things that contribute to successful operations overseas, but cover is the least of them. I mean, I'm not saying it's not important. When you're out with an asset on the street, you have to agree with him to some cover for what you're doing. We call it cover for action.
You have a story.
You have a story, some little story to tell. But for the main thing, your cover for the status in the country while you're there, that's something they're gonna figure out pretty quickly. Yeah.
So going back to, it's about a year's long training. You're getting exposure to different directorates, but you're the one that you're going to the farm for 5-6-ish months. Like as this is happening, do they have you like in dormitories, or you know what I mean? Like I'm assuming they're keeping most of this secretive to some extent. You know what I mean?
When you're going through the interim assignments and all that, you're just living at home.
Okay.
You're living at home and you're going into work as normal, just like you're just going to a different directorate. When you go to the farm, when you're down there, you're living in a dormitory.
Okay.
And then there are some weekends you can get home, go back up to Washington, depending on what activities are going on. But when you're at the farm, you live in a dormitory facility. Yeah.
And what is that like, just generally speaking, whatever you can, talk about, like, how is it broken up? Like 2 months of curriculum for, interrogations or this and that, and then we're going to go through firearms training, or, like, how is it all split up?
It's, it's not that I can't tell you because of any classification.
Sure.
It's just that the training, you're training in what we call tradecraft. That's all the skills that you'll need. It's all integrated. You're not, you don't go like one for 1 week or 2 weeks, or this for 3 weeks, or, you're working on training and all those skills based on a schedule, a training schedule that it doesn't wildly vary. You're not going to be shooting guns one day and then learning how to write intelligence reports the next.
Okay.
So it's like you go through reporting, you go through certain other aspects of tradecraft. Usually the shooting skills, those types of things, what we call defensive driving, when they're teaching you how to, maneuver around or through roadblocks or things like that. Those types of hard street skills are done in specialized courses after the training.
Okay.
So, like, if I graduate from the farm and I go to EUR division, or, I may not need to know how to get through roadblocks in Syria, or I may not have to use a weapon, or they don't anticipate I'm going to be using a weapon as I might be in some other country. So if I'm then by the division that I go to, if they say you're going to be assigned to country X, in country X you're going to need weapons training and you're going to need defensive driving training, then you're assigned by the division to go through that specialized training.
Okay.
That specialized training is not part of the normal farm. It may be taught at the farm. You may go back down to the farm for weapons familiarization, but it's not part of the career trainee program.
So when you complete everything, you get through the murder phase, and then you get your assignment.
You go through the murder board to tell you whether you passed the farm.
Yeah.
They say, look, you did good enough, you're passed.
And then
you didn't do good enough, you're out.
How long after that do they choose? Like, you've got your top 3 picks, like what your assignment's going to be. Okay.
You find that right away.
So then you get through, you pass, you get your assignment, and then is it like immediately you're leaving, and do you get some like leave, like, hey, I'm going to go home for a couple weeks?
No, well, sure, you get some leave, but no, when you're initially assigned to a division, more often than not, that division is going to take at least a year before they send you overseas.
Okay.
So you'll be getting oriented to what's going on in that country. You're going to be going to every country has a desk that supports its operations.
Okay.
So they're probably going to sit you on that desk so you can read all about the operations going on.
I see.
Even though Jack found me a slot in Moscow.
Right. That was like
right away.
More of a one-off, or that was like an exception.
It was, but all the divisions have what they call pipelines, and you go into a pipeline for assignment. More often than not, they assign you against a slot that's already occupied, with the idea that the guy who's occupying will be leaving in a year. So you have a year to get ready.
Oh, okay.
And so very, very rarely would you report to a division and be on your way overseas, like within a month. That would be unprecedented.
How long was it for you?
It was about a year.
Okay.
I reported to the division in early 78. I'd say the spring of 78, spring of 78. And I left for Moscow in the late spring of 79.
Okay.
So it was about a year.
So even though they got you the slot fairly quickly and it had been vacated, you still had time.
I still had to, there was still pipeline training I had to do.
Okay.
They wanted to send me to some refresher language training. And they also have specialized courses that they send you to when you're going to these very pervasive CI environments, counterintelligence environments, where you're going to have, they know you're going to have an opposition service that's going to surveil you, 24/7, 365 days a year. So they send you to specialized surveillance courses.
How long are those courses typically? It varies.
It varies. Again, depending where you're going and what the opposition is going to muster against you. But they send you that specialized training that's really designed specifically for the assignment you're going to.
Okay.
And that's part of that year-long pipeline. Sometimes pipelines last longer, just depending on what you have to prepare for.
During the training, that initial different directorates and then going through the farm, are you getting paid that whole time?
You better be.
Yeah.
No, you are. You're, when you initially get your letter that you're hired, they're offering me your offer. They make you an offer at a GS level.
Okay.
A GS9, a GS10, a G whatever it is. GS, depending on your qualifications.
Got it.
If I'm coming in with a master's degree and 4 years of military and a law degree, I might get a GS10 offered. If a guy has all the same things I do, except he's also got a PhD, he may be offered a GS11. You know, I mean, so you're hired at a certain rank, and so the entire time you're in training, you're paid at that rank. Yeah.
Are there things that could hurt you, like when you're trying to get into the CIA? So, like, for example, like a lot of debt or something like that. You know what I mean? Like,
yes, it could, and it would be a case-by-case basis. It used to be, back in the day when I came in, you had to take 2 polygraphs. One was called a CI polygraph. That was all about debt. It was all about contact with foreign citizens, close relationships with foreigners. Do you still have relatives living in the old country? It's all about the CI issues that might come up. Then you also had a lifestyle polygraph.
Okay.
The lifestyle polygraph addressed sexual preferences. It addressed drug use. It addressed all sorts of other things. As you can imagine, the lifestyle polygraph has now all but disappeared because drug use is, you know, I mean, what are you going to, guy's perfect candidate for the CIA and he smoked a joint in college. So you're going to not take him? No, you can overlook it. I mean, if he's still mainlining heroin, they'll probably turn him down, you know. But now, like you say, sexual preferences in the agency now, every Thursday afternoon in the main headquarters, the LGBTQ club meets.
Oh wow!
And so you know the whole it's taken a, you know, time has evolved and changed the way they look at things.
Yeah.
And so the importance, there are still some important things they want to avoid. You know, they don't want you to be a purveyor of child pornography or something. They don't want you to be in heavy drug use. You know, and they'll look for those things. But in general, the overarching everything's wrong approach with that lifestyle poly has gone the way of the dodo bird. But they still have the CI poly, and they'll try to identify and eliminate people who have personal tendencies or involvement in things which are unacceptable to the CIA. And when I say unacceptable to the CIA, it's especially if you're doing something and you're not making it public, because if you're not making it public, and then the opposition service finds out about it, they may hold it over your head as a way to threaten you, like bribery or something, blackmail. So, you know, and if you decide to make it public, and if it's beyond the realm of acceptability, they'll fire you anyway. But if so making it public doesn't make the problem go away. Making it public doesn't necessarily. So it becomes much of a judgment call. But they're still concerned about that because they don't want to hire people who are, you know, keeping secrets of things that could be used as blackmail against them.
What? How many people are going through a training class at a time? Like on average, would you say?
That literally will vary from year to year.
Okay.
You know, during the sandbox, the GWAT, and we were staffing stations like Baghdad that had 800 people in them, or in Kabul, you know, same size station. You were pushing people through training right and left. You might have operations classes. You might have them, you know, at least twice a year with 200 people in them, you know, or 3 times a year with 200. I mean, you could push through 400 to 600 operations slots a year if you needed to, but generally
keyword
speaking,
if you needed to,
it's going to be less. I mean, when I went through, Vietnam was winding down. Everything was copacetic. They were letting people out of the agency. All the huge numbers they had hired in to staff Saigon Station were now being let go. My CT class was not 200 people. My CT class was about 20, 25. And there was 2 of those a year. So about 50 people a year were being brought in. But I would say right now, your average, talking to folks that are doing the training, you'd be looking at somewhere between 400 and 500 slots a year.
And then,
and don't hold me to that, because that could be next month. That could be bumped up by 100, or cut down. So,
is it? We already talked about that part where they say, "Yeah, you passed or you failed," but is that the only time you could fail? Or
no. You can wake up in the morning. You could fail. You can. It's they probably have 2 or 3 official boards. 2 plus the big one at the end, where they call it the murder board, and that's where everybody's records are scrutinized from the day they got there. And they go through everything.
Is there a failure rate?
I'm sure that they keep statistics on everything.
But we know how Dave feels about statistics.
But I'm just not privy to what the current success or failure rates are. They don't hesitate. If you don't make the grade, they will not hesitate to let you go.
So then it would be true to say you could fail out at any point during the training, and you could even get through the whole thing and potentially not pass that final determining board.
We had 2 students at our school here who had gone to the farm and failed the farm in the last week.
Wow.
And then the military sent them here. And one of them failed here in the last week.
Boy, that would be tough.
He's in the wrong field, I think. And how long did it take to get to him? But and they can fail for a number of reasons.
I was just going to ask, what could be a couple examples, of why somebody would fail?
Just inability to comprehend or execute.
Okay.
The trade craft, the whatever techniques they're being taught. The other person can't successfully execute those techniques. And the farm and the school here are all built around practical exercises. You're a student, and during the course of instruction, they will assign you to meet with certain cadre members who will be playing the role of an agent or playing the role of a developmental. And your job is to go out and develop them and bring them along. And if it's clear that you have no idea what you're doing, or you're very uncomfortable doing it, or you can't bring that person to the next stage, you can't get him to relate to you. Your meetings are disorganized. Your writing is incoherent.
It's probably a big one too, especially now. It's the writing.
Yeah, writing is a big one. And so all of these things can be your downfall. We also teach people surveillance detection techniques. They can try to confirm whether somebody's following them. If you can't design a good surveillance route to determine your surveillance status, or you come to the end of the route and they say, did you have coverage, or were you free of surveillance? And you said, I'm free of surveillance. And they said, no, you have 4 cars following you.
Wow.
If you can't detect surveillance, what good are you going to do in the field?
Yeah.
So that sort of thing. And we have a number of people drop out too for personal reasons, at home. The wife or the kids has some medical emergency or need, and they have to go and tend to that. Or there's any number of reasons why a person might get dropped from training.
You actually taught at the farm as an instructor, is that right?
Yeah.
What years did you do that?
1985 to 1988. So it's 3 years.
And how was that, having gone through it, perspective wise, what you went through as a recruit versus now you're teaching it? What was that like for you?
It's a lot more fun to be a teacher. The school itself, the format and the way it was set up had not changed much. We still have practical exercises. We still were putting students in kind of simulated real world situations, letting them make decisions. But, the difference is, and as a student, when you finish with those different situations, you got to go back and write them all up and write all the reports. Yeah. As an instructor, not so much. You do have to go and write evaluations of the students, but that never reaches quite the volume of the reports that the students have to write. And it's just much more comfortable as an instructor. Yeah. I mean, you're more the master of the trade at that point. Whereas as a student, you're groping in the dark.
It's got to be a real niche field too. I mean, not only, because you've got a however many people are actually in the workforce doing the tradecraft, but then to become an instructor, it's like.
Well, yeah. They usually for the agency, they will bring people back from the field and offer them instructor positions after they have at least three tours overseas, sometimes more. So, I've rarely seen a guy come back to be an instructor without at least 3 overseas tours. But there's always exceptions, to that sort of thing, depending how capable the guy is. Okay. But all the instructors come from the ranks of case officers. All the instructors are line case officers on rotational assignments back at the farm, and then they go out again.
And this is like a personal question and this is just kind of like, so I'm imagining this scenario like in training, right? Like where you have like the person at the farm, and then you have an instructor or whoever like is like a role player, and you're the recruit, and I'm like, hey, all right, David, you got to go convince so and so to, I don't know what that scenario would be, but it's like you're going into this knowing that this person knows that you're the recruit and that you have to pass, and that this person is acting in a role that is trying to be, persuaded or whatever that would be. So it seems a little, it is, it's fake to an extent that like everybody knows what's going on, but you don't necessarily, like, how is this happening? Like if I'm the one that you're like, I'm the president of some company and I have access to secret information, and Dave, you're supposed to come to me and befriend me and try to get me to trust you and things like that. Like how does that dynamic work? You know what I mean? Like
in a training situation? In
a training situation where both sides know the roles and that it's being played out.
Well, I don't know that that's a real conundrum for anybody. I mean, you're hired on or paid to be a role player, and you're told to be this company president or whoever you're told to be, and you just have to, like any actor, you would get in role, and when the student comes to develop you or assess you or recruit you, is he really going to convince you to become a spy? No, it is a training situation. But he, based on the way we train them, has to touch certain bases.
I see.
He has to fulfill certain. So if he touches all those bases, he exercises the 3 or 4 techniques that we tell him to exercise.
Okay.
And he does it smoothly and fluidly. And he is convincing in the way he talks to you. Like I said, I go to the role players when it's over, and I'll say, Holly was the student coming after you. And her goal here is to get you to meet her again, get a second meeting. So I'll ask you, based on the way Holly conducted herself, the things she said, the way she used her personality vis-a-vis your personality, the way she kind of manipulated the scene and controlled the scene, would you be just willing to meet her again? Meaning willing means you just gave her the meeting. It was a gift. That's what you're talking about. You're playing a game. All right, you got it. All right, I'll go. Or would you be, based on the way she behaved and conducted herself, would you be happy to see her again? Or ideally, would you be excited to see her again? And so you're judging her, how she conducted herself, her personality, how she adjusted to show her empathy with you. And, you know, we have to trust that you're a good enough actor that you know what kind of techniques she's going to use. Did she effectively employ those techniques?
And the role players have a history in human intelligence as well, correct? So they're all very familiar with the field.
So they, you know, we don't just bring them in off the street and say, hey, you be a role player. No, these are all experienced case officers who are playing the role of case officers. Now, we as the teaching cadre sometimes get a little frustrated because that role player, as experienced as he or she may be, comes to the role with their experience in Iraq or Afghanistan, or some come to experience with South America, Bogota. Well, you know, we've got to try to tell you, look, this is a general situation, and you have to you can't come to this pretending to be, you know, working and living in the specific environments you're used to. You gotta
broaden the context. Broaden the context.
You gotta be more of a generalist. If the student comes to you, and we even give them a list of things that the student's supposed to do at this meeting. And a list of things for you that you're supposed to tell the student. Like if you're, you know, giving them an intelligence report.
I see.
It's kind of scripted out.
Not
so much for the student.
Right.
The student knows what they're supposed, but they don't have like a pure script.
The role player's role is pretty well scripted.
The role player's role is pretty well scripted, but a lot of role players, and it's human nature, they cannot totally eliminate the fact that their field experience bleeds over into this role. And so, but they try to keep that to a minimum. And, you know, but if the student is just going down, it's clear to the role player, they're just going down a checklist. Okay.
It's not convincing.
No, it's not convincing. He's treating me like I'm some mechanical thing. It's just a checklist. Okay. Or if the student, you know, treats you, you know, he's supposed to be engaging you. He's supposed to be, you know, making you feel good about his presence. And he just sits there and talks to you like this. You know, I call that, you know, like Mr. Rigor Mortis. You sit there and, so I want to see the students get engaged. And not jumping across the table. But showing that they really understand you. And they you know, so there's plenty of points that you as a role player can grade the student on.
That makes sense. That brings it definitely, like if there's certain criteria, like skills that they're needing to like express and show.
No question.
And then I'm assuming that the role player like will have like a couple barriers that they'll want to put up to see if like so-and-so can get around it or something like that. You know what I mean?
Most definitely.
Okay. That sounds like it'd be pretty fun actually.
I think it is. I think it is.
Okay. So what would your advice be to somebody that's kind of interested in this field? You know what I mean? Like,
well, number one, I'd say you can be introvert, extrovert, be whatever you want. But one fundamental thing, you have to be an individual who is interested in people. You have to be interested and enthusiastic about relating to people. And building relationships with people. Of course, I tell them on the first couple of days of the class, it's really not rocket science. You've all done this. Has anybody ever proposed to a man or a woman and got married? Guess what you had to do? You couldn't ask your wife to marry you based on some superficial relationship. What the hell? Let's get married. No. When you asked her to marry you, you had your proposal. I don't know what it was in this case, but your proposal had to, in a way, convince her that you were serious.
Yeah.
You understood her. You were going to offer her something which was going to lead to her happiness, whatever it was, however you want to put it. But that's what we're teaching our case officers to do, is basically build the kind of interpersonal relationship that you would build if you were building up to a marriage proposal without the intimacy. You're building up a relationship which is going to be a business relationship, a partnership, where you're both going to mutually assist each other.
And there's a lot at stake.
And there's a lot at stake, including your life.
Exactly.
You know? And so they've got to dig below the surface. They've got to show that they, through their own ability to relate, can really get to the heart of another human being and convince them that they're willing to put their safety and security in your hands. I mean, one example I give all the time, I said, okay, I go around the room and I look at each student. What would I have to give you to commit treason against the United States? No, nothing. I'd never do it. What if I gave you $100,000 and a yacht in the Mediterranean? No, I'd never do it. What if I gave you a mansion in the country and $1 million in the bank? Would you commit treason against the U.S.? No way. No. And we go around the room. They all, no way, no way. I say, okay, you've all just told me that this is something you never do. What makes you so bold as to think you can do that to others if you would never do it? And what we're asking you to do as a measure of your success as a case officer is convince others to commit treason against their country.
Yeah.
And you'd never do it. So you're saying you're willing to go out there and convince other people to do something you would never do for any price.
That's a very good point.
Wow.
And what is the response?
Well,
let me think about
that. Yeah.
Well,
and that's what we're trying to teach them to do.
It would probably, the answer is like, it depends. You know what I mean? Like,
it depends is not a good answer.
What about?
It depends. You mean that you would commit treason against the
yeah. I mean, it's like everybody's going to have an it depends on what the situation would be.
Some people, get weak in the knees if I tell them, okay, you don't want that mansion and that yacht. What happens if I told you I had your wife and your children, I was holding a gun to their head?
There Yeah, that's where the it depends comes on. You know what I mean? Because, I guarantee you.
We don't often have that potential to do. But so there are points out there where they might cave for something like that. But something like that rarely, if ever, happens.
Do you think that there's that point for everybody?
Not if you don't have a wife and kids.
Yeah. There was something I was going to. So being personable, relatable, engaging, sincere, things like that. Now, would that be very specific to human intelligence? And if you're not that person and you don't have the ability, can you fit in the CIA in a different?
Of course,
okay.
There are all sorts of areas in the CIA, but not generally. If you start and you commit to operations, they're not going to. If you fail, they're not going to transfer you over to be something else. If you believe that's not for you, then if you start, we have people who spend their entire career in the Office of Finance, or Office of Technical Services, doing technical stuff. There's all sorts of, in the CIA, it's hard to even think of a career field that you couldn't make a successful career out of if you decide, definitely our the fundamental thing we do is produce clandestine human intelligence for the executive branch of government, for the President of the United States. But to do that successfully, we have to have people in every walk of life.
Okay.
I mean, we've even got guys that drive the Bluebird, like I wanted to do. But so, yeah, there's plenty of opportunity.
So if you wanted to be in human intelligence, like field officer, working, what would it be called? Like clients or, things like that. You really have to have those qualities on some level.
Assets, agents.
Yes.
Yeah.
But
you absolutely do.
But if not, there's potentially some other
field
that you could go into. Okay.
No question.
Okay. Yeah,
no question.
That's really good to know.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Because we're being very specific about human intelligence today, and I wouldn't want to discourage anybody that maybe feels like they're, I don't know if antisocial is the right word.
No, absolutely. There's plenty of opportunities for people with whatever background that you've got to find a really, successful and rewarding career.
Yeah.
But, you're talking to a person who put SE, and SE. I mean, I was only and always just interested in operations.
Yeah.
And I would not be happy as a finance officer.
Yeah.
Or I can't even imagine an attorney, So, yeah, there are some people equally that no matter how much they'd like to be, they don't belong in this business. They end up being miserable in this business. If advancement in your career depends largely on your ability to exploit and manipulate human beings to the point that they're willing to commit treason against their country, and if you can't do that and you're not happy doing that, you're going to be a failure.
Sure.
You think hard before you join.
Yeah.
I mean, and I don't mean to make it sound so crass, because I've dealt with a lot of agents that I never felt, as much as somebody might say I never felt like I was exploiting and manipulating them.
Yeah.
I felt that I was helping them. When we start talking about Tolkachev and Shamoff, I'll illustrate that.
There's those. It depends.
I was helping them to achieve very serious goals that they had.
Sure.
That only I could help them achieve.
Yeah.
And it had nothing to do with me exploiting or manipulating them.
Yeah.
But Ultimately, you are using the knowledge of a person to fulfill your needs.
Yeah. Do you have any other questions?
No, I just can't wait to get to the rest of the stories. I'm looking forward to next week.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
Yeah.
And this has been good.
So we're going to shut this off right here, right now. We want to be respectful of David's time. He needs to be somewhere. So we're going to do two more, how would I call this? Episodes.
Yeah.
We're going to get into David taking over the East Berlin station, the significance of that, the Moscow station and the significance of that. And a lot of the intricacies that we can talk about in, being in those positions and your first assignment in Moscow. And then the next one will be specifically about Adolph Tolkachev and the billion-dollar spy is what he's been referred to. And, thanks for being here today. If you have any questions about this episode, leave them in the comments. Hopefully you've enjoyed this. We really did. And we'll see you in the next next weekend. Thanks.